Hi, I'm Hannah.
And I'm Matt Hanna.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannas,
where we talk about all of your favorite scary movies.
And in the wise words of Bodies, 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 today's episode is a podcast about hanging out with your smartest and funniest friends. So we have on our real life and podcast besties, Sarah and David from Paranormal in Pennsylvania.
Hello. Thank you for having us again.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Very excited to have you.
Give us your elevator pitch. I'm sure you've done it plenty of times, but
yes,
for those out there who haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, so we are from Paranormal in Pennsylvania, where we discuss history and hauntings every single Thursday. There's no location too big or too small to be covered. Everywhere from Gettysburg to your local haunted gay bar, we cover it all. So definitely check us out. You can catch episodes wherever you get podcasts. And we have a few episodes featuring Horror Hour with the Hannas and even more to come.
Woot woot!
Heck yeah.
And they also have a huge TikTok and Instagram presence, so definitely make sure to follow them there as well.
Yes, and fun fact, Hanna actually started us on our socials, so we love her for that.
Woo! Yeah, if only I could do that well with my own, but we're working on it.
We have like a year on you guys, so you'll get there.
It's true, I'm hoping. So we are covering Creep and Creep 2 today because the Creep Tapes is coming out on November 15th. That is a 6-episode show on Shudder, directed by Patrick Bryce, who directed both Creep and Creep 2, and co-written by Patrick Bryce and Mark Duplass, who wrote both of them as well. So the series is taking a look at 6 different tapes of, quote, Peach Fuzz and his previous victims. So because that's coming out so soon, and we're very excited for that, to see more of our friendly neighborhood serial killer come to our TVs, we figured it is time to get these movies on our show. And we're very excited to hear what you have to say about it, because they are something else. Before we dive too deep into it, we did want to say that we are recording this episode on the night of November 6th. So the election results came in today. So if we'll be trying to be as peppy and fun, if you think we're fun or funny, I don't know, maybe you don't, as our normal selves. But we did want to, add really quick just our thoughts on a few things. Ultimately, obviously, we both really appreciate art, and art is amazing because it offers us so many outlets, including the ability to express ourselves through art. And horror specifically serves as a really unique way to tackle difficult subjects, subjects that make us scared, disturbed, sad, disgusted. And because of that, horror itself is inherently and innately political. As such, you probably heard us mention on some episodes, how we feel morally, politically, etc. And if you're a regular listener, it should come as no surprise that we are extremely disappointed with the decision that a majority of Americans have made to re-elect Donald Trump, a man who is known to be racist, xenophobic, homophobic, sexist, and whose economic plans have been panned by leading economists. We on Horror Hour with the Hannas will continue to stand against hate, and we will continue to use our platform, however small it might be, to do our best to advocate and support disenfranchised populations, while also being critical of our leaders for the choices that may hurt the lives of millions of Americans. So we just wanted to put that out there and make sure everyone knows that this is a safe space.
As Hannah said, it should be no surprise that we feel this way. And I feel like you said it better than anything else I could say, but fuck Donald Trump. We'll move on from there.
Yep. So we can get into the real reason we're here for the 4 of us to discuss Creep and Creep 2. So I'm going to keep on talking. I'm sorry for anyone out there who just hates my voice, because I'm just going. Creep is a 2014 movie directed by Patrick Bryce and his directorial debut from a story by him and Mark Duplass. They both star in the film as well. It has also resulted in Creep 2 since then, and now the Creep tapes, as we said, are coming out. This film is super unique because it did not have a full script when it was made. It only had a 5-page outline, and the film itself is almost totally improvised.
I'm not surprised by that at all after seeing both of them. But I also like these movies. I'll just say it right away. I think they're extremely unique, as you say, and I think that's a big reason I like them so much. It also, I think it's awesome because I didn't know with this new series that it's still basically just going to be those two that are at the helm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's awesome because it's clear that they made exactly what they wanted to make with these without anyone really interfering or telling them how to do it. So
Yeah.
hopefully that continues.
Yeah, I agree. That makes this series extremely unique. And even just like hearing about how it was made, like they really just, quote, decided to set aside a week and go up to this cabin and improvise this story of a 5-page outline that we'd created. We made that thing and it was kind of a hot mess, but it had some promise. And then they had been friends with Jason Blum. And so they kind of came together with Jason Blum, and that's how this fully came to be as it is.
And that blows my mind. I didn't realize it until when we were watching it. David was researching a bit of the stuff about the movies, and he said, oh my gosh, do you know that these are improv? And that makes it really impressive to me.
Yeah, the majority was improv was really interesting. It certainly adds like a perspective that we were missing to that movie, or both movies, I should say.
What it makes you realize is how talented Mark Duplass is.
Yeah.
Like that dude is very much carrying these. I don't think they would work without his specific brand of acting.
Yeah. And obviously
gosh,
it's more than just his brand of acting. It's also his just like genius and his way he's tapped into this fucking weird ass character.
The way he is like a creep so much in these movies, it was shocking to me. I feel like if I saw him on the street, he would scare me, which I feel means he really accomplished his goal.
That's funny because like he's been in a rom-com. I would call it a rom-com that I really like, kind of quirky movie where he's like very sweet. It's kind of weird in that movie too.
Oh,
but, like,
he's super weird.
What was that called? Safety Not Guaranteed.
Yes.
And as a movie I really enjoyed. He's like, and maybe that's what makes him so good in this is like you can't really tell, is this just like a sweet weird guy or is he an actual like monster?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do feel like his smile is a little creepy to me, not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I wonder how much of that was biased because the movie name is Creep and it's clear he's the main character, right?
Come on. I mean, I have a picture of him up on my phone.
Oh, you're talking about
creepy.
You're talking about the shot that's shown on his like IMDb page.
Yeah, he looks creepy in that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's not as nice.
You should watch Safety Not Guaranteed next. Not a horror movie, but I think it'd be a funny double feature, triple feature for you.
Well, and it's funny because when they've talked about Creep 1, Mark Duplass has said, quote, that the point was to figure out if this person was dangerous or not and watch him play this cat and mouse game. And then he, compared that to the sequel where we have figured out that he's a serial killer. So wouldn't it be fun to tell a story of what a serial killer does once he's actually met his match? So it becomes not just cat and mouse, but maybe cat and cat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so thinking more about the first one, they said that they were really interested in the psychological profile of this very, very strange person. We were interested in how you meet people and don't quite understand what's up, but you start to get signs. For us, that was intense eye contact, lack of personal space, oversharing, and maybe a little bit too much love here and there. Based off what we said already, they've nailed that. And then last fun fact is originally they were going to call the movie Peach Fuzz, named after the Peach Fuzz wolf mask, owned by Duplass's character in both the films, but they later chose to rename it because they didn't want people just like sitting in the movie being like, what the fuck, why is it called that? And then being confused for half the movie.
Creep is a pretty straightforward and I think like about as good of a name as you're going to get for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's simple, it's straight to the point, but part of the I don't think I've ever gone to a movie and like sat down and been like, why is the movie named this while watching the movie? That means I'm not captivated at all.
I feel like that's kind of rare, my dude. I swear, we'll sit in movies, and then when the name of the movie comes in, we do the Cosmonaut Marcus thing where we go roll. No, wait, that
was from CinemaSins initially.
Where we say
that's why I don't like when you
credits.
do it anymore.
Oh, my bad. But yeah, no, I
shout out Cosmonaut Marcus though.
I do love him, so that's why I just
channel.
decided it was him who said it, even though it wasn't. Yeah, so I do think we kind of like look for it, and I think it's interesting to consider why things are named the way they are, whether that terminology is used in the movie or not. Obviously, in this case, it's not. But I probably would have been like, this is a weird fucking name. What the fuck are you talking about? So,
like an inside joke. I don't know. It's mysterious.
It is definitely giving inside joke if they had named it Peach Fuzz.
For sure.
So, Matt, do you want to give us the plot synopsis?
Sure,
I guess
the first one.
Since we're covering 2 movies, I say fuck the 15-second summaries. Unless you guys really want to do one. I mean, of course, you can do one if you want.
No, I was trying to think ahead of time and struggling. So I would love Matt to summarize.
And I'm so happy because these actually have such short plot descriptions compared to a bunch of the movies we've done recently.
All right.
So I'll save my
voice.
Go
for it, my dude.
Here we go. So struggling videographer Aaron accepts an assignment to travel to a remote cabin where he meets his client, Joseph. Joseph explains that he is in an inoperable brain tumor and is expected to die before his pregnant wife, Angela, gives birth. So he wishes to have Aaron record a video diary for his unborn child. Throughout the day, Joseph demonstrates eccentric behavior that makes Aaron uneasy, which culminates in Joseph confessing that he raped his wife. As an increasingly disturbed Aaron is hindered from departing by being unable to locate his car keys, he intercepts a phone call from Angela, who reveals she's actually Joseph's sister and urges Aaron to escape. Joseph, however, attempts to stop Aaron from leaving, leading to a scuffle that ends with Aaron getting away. Back at his home, Aaron starts receiving items in the mail from Joseph, including a recording of Joseph digging a grave. The police are unable to take action due to Aaron's knowing little about Joseph, who Aaron realizes is stalking him. Final DVD is sent to Aaron, in which Joseph offers to meet him in broad daylight to make amends. Aaron accepts Joseph's offer, but places a camera on himself and sets his phone to dial the police as a precaution. While Aaron waits at a park bench for Joseph to arrive, Joseph kills him from behind with an axe. Reviewing the footage, Joseph questions why Aaron did not turn around in the moments leading up to his death. He concludes that Aaron believed he was a good person who would not harm him, and because of this, he declares Aaron to be his favorite victim. Joseph, now calling himself Bill, later receives a phone call from his newest target as he places a DVD of Aaron's murder alongside recordings of his past victims. And that's the end of the movie.
We at Horror Hour with the Hannas know all about the chaos of setting the perfect holiday scene, like our last Halloween party. Hunting for decorations in cluttered bins is sometimes scarier than any horror movie, so why not do your future self a favor and make organizing a breeze? You can buy Smart Labels QR code labels on Amazon and stick them on your storage bins. Download the Smart Labels app, scan the QR code, and catalog all the stuff going into the container. Then, months down the road when you're looking for that item, you can just search in the app and it'll tell you where you put it. Don't let missing decorations haunt you. Just slap a smart label on your bin, scan, and relax, knowing the next holiday will be terrifyingly easy.
Hello, my spooky friends. This is your host, John, from Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest.
This is actually John. I hope my spooky voice scared you. And in this podcast, we're going to have creepy guests and spooky tales and mysterious sightings of cryptids, UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. So tune in if you dare to be scared.
So going into this, had you guys seen this?
I had, and I didn't realize it because I thought I recognized the premise from the brief summary that I read. But then once it starts and he says, I have the inoperable brain tumor, it's for my son, I remember being like, no, it's not. And I remember thinking that before.
Yeah, I sussed that one out really quickly. And he's like, oh, like recording for my son. And immediately I'm like, No, you're not. Like, this is, like Sarah said, like, I was like, this doesn't feel correct whatsoever. But you know, I think it's meant to be kind of obvious like that, right?
But you hadn't seen it before, right?
Oh, no, I've not seen it before.
Yeah, I had seen it before.
Yeah, we saw this for the first time a couple years ago, probably during
COVID.
Like 2020, yeah. And we were immediately pretty hooked. So I've seen it a couple times since then. I think we both have. And we've both obviously seen the sequel before now. So, yeah, getting into it a little more, I do think when they first introduce Mark Duplass's character, I think it is really clear that it's supposed to make us feel tense and weirded out. But then because he is so friendly, it is hard to suss out, right? Like, is he just freaking weird with no social cues? Or is he like a legitimate fucking creep who's dangerous? And I think they toe that line for enough of the movie that it's really fun. And then I think they don't hang on to that too long. Like, I think once we get the reveal, I like where it goes from there.
What it feels like to me, and I think this is like a pretty apt comparison, is from the time the movie starts until the scuffle happens, it reminds me of the opening scene of Barbarian, where there's just a lot of like missed social cues, and you're just like kind of on edge of like, this feels like something is wrong here, and all of my fight or flights are telling me there's something wrong here, but nothing bad has actually happened yet. You know?
I think that's a pretty good comparison. The difference being that like Keith is obviously a good person, or good enough.
And Barbarian's very much supposed to be more, I think, gendered with it.
Yes.
This is not that. It's two men in this situation. But I think it succeeds in the same way that opening scene of Barbarian did, but for even longer. So if I know a lot of people out there like Barbarian or don't like it but love that opening scene, then maybe this is the movie for you.
Yeah, this was something that we talked about actually while we were watching it, at what point we would want to leave, because you guys are hitting the nail on the head. It's all this creepy stuff, but it's not dangerous per se. And I think we even had a different perspective, because I was thinking of like, you know, people that we've met through the podcast. Obviously you guys don't count because we knew you guys beforehand, but people that we've met through the podcast that have asked to meet in person, and maybe it could happen where we had someone like this with no social cues. At what point would we be like, okay, we need to leave? You know, it really begged that question for me.
And I think it is interesting if you think about it, like pretty gendered too, is like me being a woman in this situation, I'm out of there like pretty fucking immediately. If I hadn't already like brought a friend with me, you know, like there is no way I sit through this much of this shit, and I could very much see a man sticking in longer.
It's interesting though, because I do think we all probably know somebody like this.
Oh, I do, yeah.
Who has no social cues. I mean, it is kind of giving like on the spectrum to some degree, and I think it's kind of supposed to like Joseph just could be an autistic king. Like, we don't know.
Well, clearly not. So maybe we shouldn't make that.
No, I know. I'm just saying prior. I'm saying before you know anything.
Yeah.
And like, it's like you said, there are people in your life that you might know like this that are completely harmless, because of course they are. And so like, I think that might kind of get in the back of your head too, of like, well, you know, there are plenty of people out there like this. Some people are just bad at social cues.
Yeah. In
this situation when it's with a stranger, I do think I'm bouncing though.
Interesting. Okay, because I was along the lines of Hannah, where I was like, okay, if I had someone there with me, like if David was there with me, I feel a lot better, because, you know, he's a big man and we outnumber this person. But I don't know, David, would you have left or would you have stayed?
At what point? So the first movie, I probably would have left at night.
Even though you couldn't find your car keys?
Well, especially after the phone conversation, I'm out.
But you couldn't find your car keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for certain, if somebody tell
man
like
is hitchhiking.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, she's like, but the weird thing the problem I had is just walk out of the house and just walk and just keep walking. And like, no, my at this point, my ass is running.
Yeah.
Like we are doing a brisk jog for 2 miles. Like we're not going to play the walking game. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's so the casualness with which he talks is so crazy. Like when he tells the story about the rape and he casually says, "Oh, did I scare you with my rape story?" It's like, yes,
oh my God,
you did.
Yeah.
I
would
wrote
probably
that
get out
quote
of that.
down.
But it's because he comes back with something like that is when you're just like, this dude's just weird.
Yeah, I wrote the direct quote down. Aaron, did I freak you out with my rape story? Like I laughed out loud.
He's like the little kid at the playground when you're a kid who just like makes up stories and just tells you things about how their dad's a whatever, you know, dad's a Xbox executive and just like constantly is just lying. That's what this character reminds me of.
And that's why I think obviously Aaron is very much just like assuming that and assuming this is just a person with, like we said, really piss poor social skills.
He almost pities him.
Yeah, like he pities him. So of course you're not like, I understand him not immediately jumping to this person's violent. And it's not until he has like clear evidence that this person is violent that he's like, I'm out.
And he's really, I think that Joseph is actually just a really good serial killer because like he has you always pitying him because it starts out with, all right, he's dying from cancer. I feel bad. Then it's like, oh my God, this guy's just making up stories for attention because he clearly has like some kind of issue going on. I pity him, but I need to get out of here. And then even by the end of the movie, Aaron is still like, this guy is just a weird guy that wants attention. And I don't believe he would actually harm me. And then he does. And it's like, there's, like I said, he's got that Bundy effect. He's clearly good at what he does.
Yeah, clearly, because, you know, going back to the beginning, the whole phone conversation of you should like that man has been lying through his teeth to you. I like believe you might be in danger. You need to leave. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll go meet the person in the random park. Like, I think you're asking for it at that point. Like you've.
But the way he even says in the video, he's like, "And I found this locket in your trash, and that hurt." And it's like, oh my God, he is someone that is so clearly, you know, dangerous and stalking you. But you still do feel a little bad in that moment.
Yeah, but isn't it the thing with like stalkers that usually escalates to the point of like violence?
Or we already know he sent a video of him digging a grave. That's pretty.
He's just a weird guy. What do you mean? He's got an overactive imagination.
Yeah, I think obviously it's pretty clear he's dangerous to some degree, but I think Aaron is now in this position where he's like I don't blame him necessarily for going, if I'm being honest, because not that I would do it the way he did, but cops aren't listening to him. He's tried to, he tried to report that he had a stalker, but you know, the police is the police. And in a lot of these situations don't take this seriously, especially when you don't have the information to actually report and file like a PFA or anything. So, you know, I understand where he would be like, I clearly have to take this into my own hands or this shit's never going to end. And again, we don't necessarily, even if we think someone's dangerous or weird, I don't think most of us jump to like, oh, I'm going to be murdered in this public park.
I do think we're coming at it from a lens of that we're watching a horror movie.
So of course, we have this bias of like, yeah, he is dangerous.
I am trying to think about it from the lens of like, horror movies aren't real life. Michael Myers isn't real. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes it even scarier because I think I could fall for this too. And maybe we might be getting into themes here. I know we're going through quickly. It might be that idea of we as a society are very afraid to break social norms. So like when this character we still keep our pleasantries on for the most part, which Aaron does, I think, right? He's still trying to kind of like appease this person and just like doing what keeps him safe, which I'm going to keep going a little further with this and maybe it's a stretch, but let's gender it now again. And let's say, what do women do in situations where men are uncomfortable? Women can't just tell men to fuck off. There's like a big danger to women in that situation. They have to basically do the pleasantries and keep themselves as safe as possible by basically appeasing this person until they can get themselves out of the unsafe situation. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah. And I don't know if we want to jump around with the movies, but I think that really makes sense for the second movie.
That's a great point. Well, we'll hold for a little on that. Let's bring this back when we get to second movie.
I agree with what you're saying there for sure. Yeah, like how many times is a woman at a bar and doesn't want to just say,
not interested.
I'm not interested. Like you always have to be like, kiss your friend and be like, this is my girlfriend. Or being like, oh, my husband is right outside. Like, oh, I'm married or whatever. Like you always have to have some fucking reason. You can't just be like, no, because men inherently are a threat. Like
they can be. No, I know. I that's my point though, is it's like there is a fear there that is very reasonable. I think this taps into that as well. Like, essentially what you were saying, like you wouldn't necessarily, like as a woman, I wouldn't necessarily be like, fuck off and run. Yeah.
Because I can't.
Yeah.
But it really is, like I said, it really is like you have to keep the pleasantries up to keep yourself safe. And in this situation, I know it's a man, but he's still afraid to like kind of break these social cues. And maybe that is how he's starting to feel like, oh, I am in danger, so I just need to keep appeasing this person.
And also, obviously, like that's the second half. The first half of him just not wanting to leave is he has pay on the line, and he's clearly not doing super well if this is the job he picked. So
it was Craigslist, wasn't it?
Yeah, like you took a Craigslist videographer job. You're clearly not doing too well. You probably need that paycheck, so it's hard to like tell someone when their livelihood's on the line to just dip out, I guess.
Well, I will say... Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
It's weird from the start. I mean, the bathtub being the first thing that they record. And, like, I guess I could get that. I know, I could get it. Like, maybe it is just this strange guy that wants to role play a bathtub sequence with his unborn child. But it's like, that was already a red flag to me. And when he hugs him and he's like, this is not going to be the weirdest thing that we do all day. This isn't going to be weird at all. It's like, that's a red flag. What do you mean?
Are we sure that like Mark Duplass's character isn't just doing a punishment for like Impractical Jokers? You know, he's got one of those guys in his ear.
It does seem like that.
Well, all right, we've said a lot of interesting things about this movie, but I don't think we've said, do we like it or not? So I know Hannah and I are fans of this, so I want to throw it to you guys. Like, what are we feeling?
I don't love it and I don't hate it. I think found footage is really hard for me to like because, you know, all of the quality is so much worse. And I think it can be really challenging to write, but I did like it a lot more once I realized it was all improv.
Agreed. So, but I don't know how much I should let that sway me.
Improv?
Yeah, by hearing that it was like the majority of it was all improv. And I'm like, oh, that makes me like it more, but is that fair? Does that mean like I should go back to other movies and look in when like scenes were improv and such?
Well, you don't need to do that. You could just listen to the Horror Hour with the Hannah's podcast, and they'll tell you behind the scenes facts about movies. That's how I know about it.
Exactly.
Yes. With the horror movies, they got me covered, right? But like other movies, I don't know. Like,
but I think it makes me like it more because at first I thought, what a strange plot and strange twists and turns. And I just like it more now that it's improv because I think it really speaks to the actor. Like, he does such an incredible job. He doesn't break character. And obviously, I know this is an SNL. They can edit it. But he doesn't break from this really strange headspace. And he uses it to inform all of his movements, even. I think it's a really impressive performance.
And I think that adds, too, to what Aaron has to be doing as well, right? Like, he is trying to create this realistic, empathetic character that we care about and don't want to see harmed without also falling too easily prey into the shit. So I feel like he has to be trying to channel as much realness into his performance as possible to, like, for his reactions to seem authentic.
Right. Though I do have a question about the cast. So it says that Desiree Ackhaven was in the 2014 Creep.
Is she
That's Sarah from the second movie?
Yeah, that was Sarah from the second movie, and I don't recall seeing her at all. That was
she
a
might
question
be the
I
voice
brought
on
up.
the phone.
That's Kitty Asselton.
Okay, then maybe she's in the diner because that's the only time that people are on the
Yeah,
screen.
I'm not sure.
I really didn't look into that, so you've stumped me with behind the scenes knowledge.
I'm
But
currently
she
stumped
is
as
friends
well.
with them, so I'm not surprised. I feel like when you have these like low budget projects, you kind of just like work with your friends and the people that are around you. So I'm not surprised to hear that like this person that they probably paid very little money to come on and be a star of the sequel helped them out with the first one in some way.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like they just like went out to a cabin and like they're like, oh hey, while we're out here, let's do this as well. So if they're all friends, right?
Yeah, that's what they said. They rented a cabin for a week.
Right. So like, you know, like fell into you could be a part of it too. Like, yeah, why not?
This is where we convince you guys to make a horror movie with us at a cabin.
Oh God, I am such a chicken shit. I think I'd like buy into it too fast.
I'm down.
But I would do it. What I think is really interesting about this movie is obviously because we think he is such a freaking creep that I do think it makes the rest of the movie extremely tense because you're just kind of waiting for shit to hit the fan. Like you're waiting for the thing that crosses the line where he like threatens someone's life or safety. And it just does not happen for so much that I think you're kind of constantly waiting for like what's around the next turn,
which makes it effective. I think.
I don't know. Once he started like breaking things around his house and like rifling through his, like we're crossing the threshold from harmless letters left to like now like there is property damage, which it's an escalation, right? So like at that point, I'm like, this guy absolutely
but that's
does have the potential
second
to harm.
Yeah, that's the last third of the movie. So I think for the first third half, like you're doing this like, do I have to be as worried as I am? Like, is he really gonna hurt him or he's just like a general old creep? And then it crosses to like, no, he's actually dangerous. But like, what's gonna happen next? Now that we know he's dangerous, what's he gonna do? So I think the way that they've shaped the tension or the way like the reason we're tense might have changed, but it doesn't mean for at least me on my first viewing, it wasn't there.
Well, David unlocked something in my brain if I jump back into themes for a second.
Oh,
and well, we already did some themes. I have to say that he made a good point about the stalking. I think Aaron is just in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
In this situation. And I think it also goes back to what I said before about how it's like how women have to put on the pleasantries. In this situation, Aaron doesn't want to believe that Joseph is going to hurt him, even though Joseph is showing all of these signs of it. And he basically goes back and puts himself in the situation to get hurt, which I think is like a tale as old as time in this situation. So maybe this movie is like, I said it wasn't gendered, but I think it is trying to tap into that like fear there.
I definitely see that.
Me too. I was interested, Hannah, in terms of like abusive relationships or possible narcissist, if you had any mental health diagnoses for him.
So
not to put you on the spot or anything.
I should have given you a warning.
Yeah, so
is that ethical?
Yeah, obviously, if I were a real person, it would not be ethical. Yeah, I mean, clearly, he has antisocial personality disorder. Like most serial killers do have some sort of personality disorder, and that happens to be the most common. So I think we can just like pretty easily assume that that is one of the many things going on up in that brain. I think he does. I think it's hard, right? Because we don't know when he flips a switch. We don't know if he's acting or if he's genuinely reactive or upset or whatever. Like it's hard to know if he's faking or not. So it means that I can't really be like, oh, maybe he has borderline personality disorder because he's emotionally unstable and impulsive. Like you can't really actually say that because we don't know how much this is him versus him playing up to get his victim. And I think that is what, makes these movies really interesting. And I think that question is even more unclear in the second one.
Yes.
He clearly has some fucked up attachment styles. I mean, like in the second, he seems I would say in both, he seems pretty fucking anxiously attached.
It's another reason you feel pity for him.
Yeah.
You're right.
What did
I
you
feel bad enough for him. I'll let him kill me.
Good. Did you guys think, like, obviously I found the first time I watched this like pretty tense, at least the first one. Did you guys find it tense or scary in any way?
I think so, just because it has such a realism to it. And I know I keep going back to the improv thing, but I think it really does add, the way the actors interact adds to the realism to me. Because I could see this happening and being very scary, especially, you know, like, you are at this remote cabin, you want to be a people pleaser and be nice. So yeah, I thought it was scary. I only had one jump and I had no scream. But I jumped when he approaches the car in the very, very beginning of the movie.
That's so funny.
Yeah, admittedly, it was mainly the jump scares that got me, which, you know, jump scare, I find somewhat of a cheaper form of horror. But I didn't necessarily find it, like, tense or scary. In fact, I was actually getting really tired of all the jump scares that they included.
I think the jump scares in this are really interesting because they're not like, I think they fit into his characterization really well. So in that way, I don't know if they feel as cheap to me, at least watching it now that I've seen it, because it makes sense for his character to be fucking weird and like popping in and like trying to scare you or like startling you. Like, he is weird. He has no social boundaries. Of course, he's going to pop up in your face sometime. So for me, it didn't feel like this forced cinematic element. It just felt like some weird dude being a weird dude. And like, it was scary because it startled me. But yeah, I would agree they're more startling. They're not built to, which cheapens jump scares a lot of the time. So I get what you're saying in terms of that.
Right. So I definitely agree with what you were saying as well. They fit his character very well. It fits within the movie. I just felt perhaps one too many.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think I felt that way a little bit in the sequel too, with Sarah trying to jump scare him back.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. I was exhausted with it.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you guys, so I know we've talked a lot, obviously, about what this movie is saying, how we would react in this situation, you know, kind of comparing it to an abusive relationship of sorts. Do you guys have any more that you would add thematically?
I don't think so. Just to me, it was really about people pleasing and manipulative relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the constant give and take or give and pull, however you want to say it, where he's like, I have to admit I lied to you earlier, and then gives some like basically another lie, but he's like, and I'm really sorry about that. I'd like to move on from it. And so it's like very, you know, what a lot of people would take as like a hearted apology.
I mean, that's textbook abusive relationship, right?
Yeah.
Damn. I don't think going into this, I had thought about that there would actually be some like pretty interesting themes in there. And I feel like we came to that conclusion along the way, which is exciting. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because in the second one, I was like, oh, I have a theme here. Yeah. Like I wrote down a thing and I did not get to that point with the first one where I was writing down things.
It's clearly there. So I think we probably should be moving on to the second one. So do we want to rate this one or do you have anything else you need to say?
If anyone has a favorite scene, feel free to share and then we can rate it.
Oh, mine's got to be when we have to stare at Peach Fuzz for like what feels like an eternity.
Is that where he's dancing in the corner, like just wiggling his hips?
No,
really
I'm
creepy?
talking about when he stands at the door and won't let him out.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a forever long
I love
moment.
that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I love the ending where he's just the very ending where he's just talking about how like
Aaron's his favorite
and all this shit. And then we just see this twist. Because like obviously the whole time you're not like, oh, he's a serial killer. So I think the serial killer twist is really funny and obviously plays well into having sequels. So I will give them huge props for the like mini twist there.
Yeah, because it's one of those endings that if there was never a sequel, it would have been fine. You know, like you didn't feel like there was something else that had to be explored.
And I will say, I feel like for the sequel, they did find something interesting to explore, which I'm impressed by.
Yeah.
So before we go to that, though, let's rate this thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
So I'm going to give it, I feel like I'm giving it horror movie scale logic, probably like a 7 out of 10.
I love this movie. That doesn't mean I think it's perfect, but I feel really inclined to rewatch this movie any day of the week, honestly. So I'm going to go with an 8.
Ooh, that's high. I'm going to go with 6.5.
That's unfortunate because that was the number I also had in my mind.
You just want to be me.
That's all right. You're allowed to go with it.
Okay.
I thought it was going to be way lower for you, David, the way you're talking about it.
Yeah, me too.
No.
I thought David was very critical of the decision making and would be like, meh.
No, so ultimately it came down to like I was entertained by the movie. So by that, like I'm at least at a 5, right? And then you added like the nuances of that movie as well, and the fact that we were able to have such a discussion over it, like elevates it for sure.
I will say my opinion of movies is almost always improved by your guys' podcast.
Let's go. Unless we don't like the movie.
No, and then we love the movie.
No.
But I'm saying,
If it is trash, then I'm like, okay, yeah, they agree with me. It is trash. But when you guys break down themes and like the behind the scenes stuff and like Barbarian, as you guys know, I hated and I still don't love. But when you guys broke it down into like the multiple acts and stuff, it just brings a different perspective. I think I'm not a super educated movie watcher. So by talking things through or listening to you guys talk things through, I feel like it always improves my rating.
we're going to use that for an ad.
Yeah, we are.
I like
Please
it.
do.
Direct snip.
Cut that out. No, and I think that makes sense because, like, what is watching film or interacting with art other than like discussing and coming up with like a reaction or a feeling about it? And it usually does take, I think, talking to people. I mean, hell, that's what half of our English classes were through high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like to think about this as I'm using that knowledge from our English class and applying it to horror movies, whether they're good or schlocky. I feel like you can always try to take something away from it.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Shout out Miss Gallagher, Mr. Jens. Shout out to my high school English teachers who made me less stupid at interpreting things. So we can bring it to Creep 2. Creep 2 is a 2017 movie, again directed by Patrick Brice and written by Brice and Mark Duplass. This time starring Mark Duplass and Desiree Akhavan. Sorry, I did not look up how to pronounce that ahead of time. My bad. They're, again, the primary two actors on screen throughout the film. They similarly only had an outline, so it was said that they would actually really surprise each other with their choices a lot of time in the making of this film, and which helped, keep it spontaneous and hopefully feel natural. And in an interview, Patrick Brice was talking about how these movies aren't like traditionally scary, which I think we covered a bit in the first one. He said, "We knew the majority of the film was going to live in awkward situations. To some people, what they experience every day is scarier than the scenario of a horror movie." And I thought that was a really fun way to put it, like, just the awkwardness alone. Like, most people cannot live in that level of awkwardness in their day-to-day lives.
I mean, like I said, it feels like you're watching Impractical Jokers. And I know people that can't even watch that show.
Yeah,
That
that's
movie's more
true.
of a horror movie. Or that show's more of a horror movie than this is.
Yeah, I do personally don't do well with any form of like awkward humor or like awkward scenarios like that. I cave real
Brachacho,
quick.
these were not the movies for you, especially Creep 2. I feel like this one is so painfully awkward.
I will say right away, that's it for background, right? Or we have more?
Just to reiterate what we said before, Mark had said the first is to figure out if this person was dangerous or not and watch him play this cat and mouse game. With the sequel, we didn't want to repeat that. So we figured that because we're starting out knowing he's a serial killer, it would be fun to tell the story of what the serial killer does once he's actually met his match. So it's not a cat versus mouse, it's cat versus cat. And I thought that was a really interesting way to consider their jumping off point. and how different this movie really is from the first one.
Well, I was going to say right away, I think this movie completely succeeds as a sequel because of that. It says, let's do something different. And I also say it does something that a lot of great horror sequels do, that it really likes to lean into the comedic side of things as well, that I think kind of like keeps it fresh. Because I think once you've like lifted the veil, it's kind of hard to be scary again. And so this one says, how else can we entertain you? And I think comes in from like a very, very funny angle, while also like maintaining a lot of what made the first one, I think, really good.
Did you guys feel like this one had like almost a genre shift much more towards the comedy side of horror comedy?
I did think so.
A little bit. And that's primarily only because of the beginning of the movie. So it's starting out with like the literal bang of murdering the one guy. Or I was like, that's actually kind of funny how it just opened up
Dave's
with that
death scene. That I wrote, Dave's death scene is so fucking funny to me. Just because he kills him and then just goes, God damn it, and sips his beer.
Yeah.
Like he's having an existential crisis about his career as a murderer. Like we've all had our existential crises about our careers, but like to have that as a serial killer and throughout the movie referring to that as his job is so fucking funny to me.
Well, let me read this plot summary for this one and then we can continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does that sound good? Cool. All right. So a prolific serial killer using the name Aaron after his first victim from the first film finds himself dissatisfied with his killings and undergoing a midlife crisis. When his latest ad for a videographer lures YouTuber Sarah to his remote cabin, Aaron changes his approach by admitting he is a serial killer who will let Sarah live for the next 24 hours if she records a documentary on his life. Sarah, doubting his revelation, agrees to film Aaron in the hope that the video will popularize her unsuccessful web series about eccentric Craigslist clients. Over the course of the day, Aaron struggles to intimidate Sarah, who plays along with his various eccentricities. While Sarah continues to doubt that Aaron is a serial killer, Aaron informs her that he intends to conclude the documentary by having her kill him. He eventually manages to horrify Sarah by staging a suicide attempt, which almost causes her to leave. However, after Aaron reveals that his life was not in danger, she remains to hear Aaron share intimate details about himself, culminating in the two sharing a kiss. Aaron brings Sarah outside to announce that the documentary will end with them committing suicide together. Sarah attempts to escape when she sees Aaron stab himself in the stomach, but Aaron stabs her and drags her to an open grave he dug. As Aaron gives a closing monologue, a still alive Sarah emerges from the grave and strikes him in the back of the head with the shovel before fleeing. Afterwards, Sarah is recorded in public by an unidentified individual whistling a tune heard in Aaron's videos. When Sarah notices the individual filming her, the camera abruptly cuts away. And that's the end of the movie.
Side note, if you just heard like the most dramatic sneezing in the background of that, I don't know how audible it was, but that is our son, Nortonio the dog, who has quite possibly the most dramatic sneezes I've ever seen from any living creature.
His whole body twists.
Yeah, he literally like his head like headbangs really dramatically.
He's so cute. Has he ever been shown on your guys' socials? If not, you should make a Norton Stan post.
He's actually in the video for Smile 2. Very briefly.
I'm sure you haven't used any for Halloween posts of him?
I don't think
Probably
I
should.
did. I forgot to post how cute his little like weird sea monster Cthulhu outfit was. So
post it now.
I'll throw it in with our next Halloween costume post, which I've just not posted yet at the time of recording. But check that out. Norton will be included. So, this movie. As we said, it starts off just like very different and it takes a much different, unique approach to the storytelling.
Yeah. I'm trying. I mean, I said what I wanted to say already. Basically, it's a really entertaining thing to just have him admit he's a serial killer right away because it completely changes the dynamic where the first person couldn't figure out if this guy was a danger. This second person is just completely convinced they aren't a danger because a real dangerous person would never admit that they were, right?
Yeah, I think it's so funny when and it's his delivery too. I'm what's classically known as a serial killer. Like, I laughed out loud. I was like,
yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah, I don't particularly like that nomenclature, but, you know, it's just like, I'm like, oh, yeah. But also they should have just...
funny.
Once he announced he was a serial killer, roll credits, I'd be out. I'm like, oh, this person like who invited me out to their place is like, oh, I'm a serial killer. All right, I'm okay.
Well, I think it's interesting because we think about the first one and how we were or might not have been critical of Erin. I think in this one, she surrounds herself with creeps or weirdos all the time for her internet project. She is like constantly with people who are very weird and different and don't have social cues. So to her, she's like, no, he's just another one of those.
And in this one, he actually comes across because he's being his authentic self.
Well,
he's
we
not
don't know that either.
Fine.
And I think that's a really
he's
interesting
much more
question.
suave in this one is the word I want to use. Like he actually he seems like charming almost from what I remember.
Sometimes.
And that's very different.
But he then shows her, one of the videos of a murder, of him murdering somebody, and there's clearly a catalog of many people. So I don't know. I was like, that's the part where I kind of departed from the story a little bit. I was like, now you're just gonna chase this for clout and see. But then again, that's been a theme for a lot of horror movies.
Yeah. Did she believe it at that point?
No, she doesn't believe it until he actively tries to harm her, I think. Like, even when he's like, oh, kill me, she's like, nah, I'm not buying into it. And she's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then when the moment actually comes is when she, panics. She definitely does not believe it and just thinks he's a little freak. And for her, she's like, well, he's clearly unstable and is putting on this little show. And I do think there is some believability to it, especially when the episode before she's like acting like someone's mommy and rocking them. Like, you're already dealing with enough weirdness. And again, I think there's this aspect of like struggling artist who thinks they found their break. And she does kind of say it. She's like, he could be a serial killer, but he's also the perfect subject.
And don't forget there's some romance going on in this one too.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I really thought it was interesting and spooky to me because her name is Sarah, so obviously that gets me. It's even spelled like mine is. And again, I know I mentioned this with the first one, and maybe this is less prevalent for you guys because you guys cover movies and we cover locations, but we've met some very interesting people when we go to haunted locations, and I would never think that any of them would harm me. And so I kind of took a parallel between Sarah being like, is he a serial killer or not? Because there has been at least one location that we've gone to where I've been like, is the owner of this location going to murder us? Let's wait and see. So I guess I really could resonate with this one better, or it resonated with me better, rather.
Damn, sounds like a success.
Yeah, I liked this one. I think I liked
better.
I liked the story better of this one. I didn't like the jump scariness better, as we mentioned.
Yes, that is definitely the biggest negative was instead of it's just his jump scares, it's both their jump scares. So double the amount of jump scares.
Yeah, me too. I was kind of like, this girl is so annoying to me. But I think that's part of what makes this movie so uncomfortable is she's trying to match his weird. And it just doesn't feel authentic and it feels weird and out of place, I think, to me. But I think that's on purpose because it makes me feel the feelings I think the movie wants me to feel, which is like, stop, please. I don't want to be here.
Yeah, like when she's giving him the massage in the hot tub, I'm like, oh, I hate this.
Oh my God, literally hate.
Or the nudity in the beginning as well. I was like, wow, this escalated really quickly. I went from 0 to 100.
Yeah,
I did say Hannah warned me Hannah warned me that there is nudity, like significant nudity in this film, so just get ready.
Good for him.
Well, what I messed up doing while warning you of the significant nudity was essentially sending you an unsolicited dick pic of Mark Duplass's full frontal.
It was fun.
I was like, this movie hangs dong. I love it. And then I was like, oh, I just sent my friend a penis. Like, my bad.
It's definitely his. He's definitely naked in that, right? There was no...
Well, I don't know. right?
Who's to say?
Oh.
He would be a shower, not a grower, if that's the case. But
Most people are, I think.
who's to say?
Because a lot of movies I've found out, like where you see like frontal nudity on a man, it's actually not their penis.
Yeah. I didn't look that up. Matt, you're on
I'm looking it up. You guys keep talking.
Tell us
now.
if it's Mark's penis and if we should look at it more in depth.
This is what the fans need to know.
I agree.
Sounds like it was him from the articles
God.
I'm seeing.
That's bold. That's commitment.
I'm trying to figure it out though. Like no one is answering it directly, and I don't trust Google AI.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't. I'm sure there's some interview where he's been
Hold
asked
up.
if it was his
This
penis.
article is titled "Balls Equality." Mark Duplass promotes male screen nudity. I like being naked on TV, Duplass said. I am not a sexual role model. Oh, no, I can't watch the paywalled. I got paywalled after reading the quote.
Okay, well, Mark Duplass is pro male nudity in
So
film.
are we.
We also feel that way. I think there's been how many decades of like women's bodies being overly sexualized without purpose. So I think it's nice to just throw a dick in there once in a while, especially in a situation like this where it is not sexualized at all. Like the purpose is to make you think of that guy who pulls out his dick for no reason or like unsolicited, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Well-
I agree. And it was interesting too, because we were commenting on the nudity as it went through, like her nudity or lack thereof. Because there were a few times David was like, oh, maybe we're going to see her naked now, but like the hot tub scene, for example. But she has a shirt on in it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But in that moment in the hot tub, was it implied that he's like fully naked?
Or maybe I just assumed.
Yeah, so I could see there like not being a need for nudity in that exact moment, but the beginning it certainly made sense.
Yeah. I think either way, it's intentional that he is clearly more exposed. Like even in the hot tub, if his dick's not out, he still doesn't have a shirt on. Like either way, he is much more exposed throughout the film, which I believe would be intentional by filmmakers. Otherwise, like it's already just like they could have just shown us boobs if they wanted to. I found this movie. I mean, I think this movie is probably more uncomfortable, frankly, since she is, right along with him being weird. And it makes it hard for me to know how much I like it. But I'm like, I don't know. I think maybe it's more successful, but that doesn't mean I like it more.
I'll jump in if it helps.
Yeah.
I like this one better than the first one. And I remember when we watched them back to back, I was like, this feels like such a fun escalation of the first one that really swings for the fences in a different way that the first one does. And that makes me just really enjoy it. I think it's scary, it's funny, it's really uncomfortable, and it works. So overall, I mean, I'll just tell you guys, like, I like this one, and I'll probably rate it higher than the first. Ooh. But we'll get into themes here soon too, because I'm sure there's plenty to say. But Sarah and David, like, are we thumbs up, thumbs down? How are we feeling?
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I liked this one better. Well, no, I agree with Hannah. I didn't like it better necessarily, but I did feel it was more effective.
And that's half the battle.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a horror movie. We're not always supposed to be like, wow, I loved it.
And is there like reasons you feel like you liked it more? Just that it was more effective?
Yeah, and I think it's more effective, and I just liked that it was such a unique concept, too. I feel like it's a very relevant concept. I could see it happening, like, some YouTuber going and doing that, and it was so effective for me personally.
Yeah, I feel like I agree. Like, I could see the YouTuber, but also like we've watched movies with the YouTube or some social media person really hunting for that like thing that'll make them famous, and it leads to like their either ultimate doom or lifelong problems. But
I think again the improv of this, or at least the way that the actors embody the mindset of the improv, is what makes it effective to me, because it feels authentic. Like it feels like just two people filming a documentary in a cabin, because that's what it is.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the small scale of the films is imperative to making them feel real. And I do love for found footage. You know, I think a lot of found footage might fuck up because things don't need to be on camera, so it feels artificial that way. But these are both very, very smart in explaining why the camera is on. And I love that.
That's a good point.
I didn't even say anything about that. Yeah, this like very much is the perfect medium for a found footage movie. And that's usually my complaint with found footage is it just like a lot of the times when it's done, it doesn't make sense for it to be found footage, but these two makes total sense. Helps you suspend your disbelief a little bit more.
This is such a small detail, but I did want to throw it out. One of the things that I thought was the funniest in this movie has nothing to do with even the serial killer stuff. It's when they go to interview him and the water's dried up and he has the hissy fit outside.
Yeah, that was great.
And then he starts throwing rocks at birds. And I was just like watching it alone, laughing out loud because he was throwing rocks at birds repeatedly. And she's like, Aaron, it's okay. He just keeps doing it. I was like,
so funny.
I love you, sir. Like, so
and then
good.
he's like, we're gonna just cut in the water where he's like moving his arms in the next scene. It is funny.
But I also like the humor of it also wasn't left on me, that it looks like that like stream had been classified as a stream for a very long time. Not like it was like a raging river at one point, like 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, no, I agree. It reminds me, to be fair, of like when you set out to do a hike, but you have like I keep saying like, and I'm very sorry. When you go on a hike in a certain season that maybe you've only seen pictures of that place in a different season. So you're unprepared for what snow will be on the ground or that things have dried up by then. I've done that. So I can relate to the hissy fit. It's so funny.
Yeah, it was very believable.
And now I gotta ask, we're saying things we like, anything we didn't like, and then I'd say let's jump into themes here. Because I know we have to wrap it up here soon.
I do think the jump scares were a bit overdone for me, but I think that's just personal preference. I don't think that speaks to the filmmaking. I do think that they made sense for her trying to match his freak.
That was kind of going to be my point about it, where it's like the jump scares aren't entirely for us in this situation. They're kind
for
of
him.
They're for him, and they're kind of a mode in which to tell the story, so they make sense to me. So it's harder for me to complain about them. Like the cheapness factor disappears when it's like critical to the actual plot.
And I think it also really parallels him in the first movie because he does do that. So I like that her character, who's matching his freak, would do it too. But yeah, I agree. I didn't find them effective in the same way because of that. And I was kind of like, shut the fuck up, Sarah, stop it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that it was perhaps how rapid they were.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember,
it was really
like
one after the other. They were the same scene, and it happened like 2 or 3 times.
Yes, that's what I remember as well. And that's what was that I didn't like.
No, I agree. I will give you that. I, at that point, was starting to feel mildly fatigued by it, by the nonsense.
Okay, well, you said you have some ideas for themes, right?
Yeah, so something that I really liked, he calls her out, essentially, for, like, he knows that she has this show. He knows that this is what she does. And he acknowledges that he's read this book about journalism and about how journalists need to connect with their subjects, essentially, even if it means faking it a little bit. So I thought that was a pretty poignant moment.
She's a cloud chaser.
Yeah, but also him trying to get her to be complicit in his death is, I think, also connects to that. And like thinking about Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal,
okay.
I think it's making a similar point about what we do to get big like what we're willing to do, even if it means not being authentic or straight up faking his death or something.
Yeah, I see that. And Sarah, you said that you saw some carryover from the themes of the first one, right?
Yeah, just the idea of needing to people please and not break the societal norms, because she does it in a different way where she's trying to meet him versus in the first movie, Aaron is doing it in a way that's trying to pacify him more, I think, and move on in a more, typical behavioral way. But she does it still in a way trying to please him and match him and scare him and not let him scare her, rather. So I think there's still the same, not necessarily abusive relationship, but manipulation happening.
I agree with that. I think that's a good read of it, and how those characters might serve a different purpose within the same overall metaphor. I also thought it was interesting that they mentioned multiple times in this, he compares his serial killing to religion and it being spiritual. He talks about how, like, he is the amalgamation of all of the people that he killed.
I mean, he takes the name.
Well, yeah, he quite literally takes the name of someone he killed. I didn't write down a ton of examples because I was working when I rewatched this one, if I'm being real. But it came up multiple times, and I wondered if they were trying to say anything about religion or spirituality, or if it was just like, that's a good lens to make this guy fucking weird, even more so. Yeah, it just got me thinking. And I don't know if there's an answer to that, really. And I don't know if they would even have an answer to that. I just thought it was interesting that it came up multiple times. So I wanted to point
That is
it out.
interesting. I didn't catch it.
I'll have to go back. I don't know. Not that I'm going to edit it into this episode, so maybe I won't go back. But, like, in theory, I could. I'll send you some quotes, my dude.
I got nothing on this one. I'm sorry. I'm racking my brain.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was interesting. And when something is repeated, like it's a 90-minute movie, if he's saying something a couple times, I was like, maybe it means something to them. But if I didn't write down enough to get there on my own. So would love to know, Mark.
I'll hit us with one more, and maybe this links back to that. And I think this one's more text than subtext, but it's obviously about like purpose and like trying to figure out your purpose. And he is having this midlife crisis over his purpose. Maybe that's where we get to the religion a little bit, because some people try to make religion their whole purpose, and usually that's not a healthy coping mechanism.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like bringing that into it, because it's
that's why
very
you keep
clearly,
me around.
Yeah, it is very clearly about his search for purpose. It's just funny that he's a serial killer looking for his purpose as a murderer. But yeah, very much so. Religion evolutionarily offers us, community. It offers us an answer for what we do when we die. It offers us purpose. It offers us a coping skill, perhaps. So
it was just serial killing.
Yeah.
He's justified. He's innocent.
This man has been framed. He's innocent.
He's like Cooper Trapp from Trap. He's innocent.
Oh my God.
When you look like that and you're funny like that, you just, he didn't do anything wrong.
Yep.
All right. That was my main one, though. I think it's text, that it's kind of about purpose, and maybe that's also what she herself is trying to find in her YouTube career.
Yeah.
So they find each other, and that's why they share a little bit of similar passions, or they share similar passion for their crafts. One of which being serial killing, one of which making YouTube videos. Kind of similar.
Very similar. Yes.
I will say, like, I want to know what you guys think of this ending, because it really does feel like throughout that, like, Aaron, Joseph, Mark Duplass, whatever his name is, actually does have feelings for this woman. And, like, because he's met his match, is, like, into it, right? And that's why I think he doesn't... he ends up not killing her, and I do feel like at the end,
it's not that he chooses to not kill her. He thinks he's killed her, and she gets away. But he wasn't. It's hard to know. Yeah, if he's really planning to. If his Romeo and Juliet speech is just to weird her out more. Like, it's hard to know in this one especially if he is just this weird or if he's faking being this weird.
But my point is, like, what does it say about the ending? Because she doesn't look scared exactly whenever she catches on camera. And, like, if he wanted to kill her, he would have probably done something similar to what he did with Aaron. It almost feels like...
To me, it kind of feels like that's where it's headed.
Okay.
Like, my interpretation is he was going to do the same thing and send her, like, this shit in the mail.
You know, I kept thinking throughout this, is this going to be like Saw, where she, like, takes up the helm of doing this? So that was my theory.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
That was one thing I was thinking when he's like, yes, like, when the master or the apprentice becomes the master. I was kind of had my fingers crossed for that.
And it might be. Stay tuned.
Yeah, you never know.
I know, all this talk and has me just so excited for the next one or for the show, because I just want more of this character. This is like the most fun serial killer to root for and follow in movies, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I agree, my dude.
And so, are you guys excited? Are we feeling good about the TV show?
Yeah, would you guys feel inclined to watch the show, or do you think it's a pass for you?
No, I want to watch it. I want to see what happens. I think they do a really good job of leaving cliffhangers at the end of their movies.
Well, wait, correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't the episodes like his previous victims? So it's not necessarily picking up, because aren't they in development of the third movie? I thought I read that online.
They've said they've been in development for the third movie for fucking forever. Like, we watched this in 2020 and they were, quote, in development for the third movie. So I think it's hard to tell. I do think that this is probably situated in between or maybe even before Aaron. I can't remember if I read the specific timeline. But yeah, I'm hoping we're still getting a third movie that leaves off after this. But it's hard to know.
Yeah. They officially released a Creep 3 teaser on TikTok in June.
What the fuck? Why do you know more background than me? The F.
Well, I just Googled. I just have my phone.
Oh, okay. I
Get
feel
called
better.
out.
Oh, I see on Reddit, Creep 3 is finally teased by Mark Duplass. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're still getting it. So beautiful. Wow, so excited. Because they were saying forever, like, they didn't have, like, they wanted to make one, but they're not going to make one if they don't have a good story that, like, adds something to it, like the second adds to the first. So
we're Creep stands, so we're here for it.
Yeah,
we'll keep watching.
I'll be waiting patiently.
We are almost at our time cap here, so I think we got to rate it.
I'm
you
going to
go first again? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I want to hear Sarah and David first, since they rated it the first one the lowest.
I'm going to go a 6. Well, I'm going to go 7 for rating.
Yeah.
But I like it less. That's my caveat.
I think that's fair.
Sometimes that's a good thing with a horror movie.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right,
I'm going to go 7 as well. I was almost going to go to 7.5, but I think 7 ultimately.
Well, that's funny, because I was also going to go with a 7. I'm sorry, I cut you off. If you have more to add, please do that.
Oh, no, it's fine. It was just like I ultimately was... I can't really give more than a 7. I liked it better, but there were still some things that I felt brought it down a little bit.
I gave it a 7 because I think the first one is a much more... It's like a tighter film to me. And I have, as much as I think the second one has a lot more laugh out loud moments, the moments that, like, I find less funny or annoying to myself personally are more glaring in the second one, I would say. Well, but I still like it, obviously. What about you, Matt?
I'm going 7.5. I think I like them both similarly. I think I like this one better. I just really remember, like, a lot of the humor standing out to me. Yes. And I think I'm going to be biased when a sequel does this awesome thing of actually like being different and changing and trying to like drive the characters forward instead of just trying to repeat what was already done. And so like that automatically is just going to like give me some rose tinted glasses for it. So.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Well,
thank you so much for coming back on the show, guys. Let us know again where we can find Paranormal in Pennsylvania.
You can catch episodes wherever you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. We do videos on YouTube, and you can follow us on socials at TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So check us out there, and definitely stay tuned for an upcoming episode with Horror Hour with the Hannas.
Woot woot. I'm very excited to be on the show.
All right.
Well,
I think we're done. I've been Matt Hanna.
And I'm Hannah.
That's been Paranormal in Pennsylvania. And, spooky season's over.
Don't be too creepy.
It's going to be dark and sad out. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Horror Hour with the Hannas. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you can find podcasts. You can follow us at Horror Hour with the Hannas on TikTok and Instagram for more content. If you like the podcast, please follow and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!